Good day, everyone. And once again, we are back together, just making sure that we are preparing for those exams. And of course, we know that some of you have already started with your exams. And I hope that you found the lessons that we've been giving on this channel very, very helpful in preparing towards your exams. And so if you are still new and you haven't subscribed, please just hit that subscribe button. Just make sure that you are part of the family. And of course, at the end of the lesson, you can also hit that like button, so that obviously we get the algorithm going and telling people that we actually dishing out good content. And today I'm going to be talking about sinking funds. I want you to please just pay attention to this lesson, and it's going to be really, really helpful towards preparing for your exams. All right, let's get right into our lesson. All right, so let's start talking about sinking funds. All right, so suppose as a company, you buy assets, all right? So whatever it is that you use, equipment that you're going to use. Okay, once again, I'm going to use a car. So suppose a company owns a car. So they buy this car for a certain amount. Now, obviously, in this case, we are talking about the cost of buying this car in this particular year. So let's just say, for argument's sake, very cheap car, 150,000 rands. Okay, so this is what the car costs us today. But remember what's going to happen, okay? If we're using this car, what happens to the car? The car depreciates, right? So in this case, depreciation takes place. And so at the end of, a period of time, let's just say, just for argument's sake, at the end of 5 years, this car does not cost the same amount, okay? So let's say it depreciates. However we want to calculate that depreciation, and suppose we say at the end of 5 years the car now doesn't cost 150,000 rands anymore. The book value on the car would now be 50,000. I'm just making an example with this. All right, so remember, it kept on depreciating along the years. But I want you to think about it. At the same time, there's another phenomenon that's taking place. And what is that? It's inflation, right? So, meaning the cost of replacing the car in 5 years, the car will not necessarily be worth 150,000 rands anymore, or rather, to replace the car will not cost us 150. So with inflation, at whatever rate that it is increasing at, what happens is that the cost of buying a new car keeps increasing. Let's just say, for argument's sake, now buying a new car after 5 years will now cost us 200,000. And I'm making an example with this. Okay. In fact, let me not make it 200,000 so that it does not. Let's say 220,000. So to replace a new car, okay. Remember, we would have used the old car. Now its book value, all right, would now be 50,000. And now to replace the new car, to replace the old car with the new one, would now cost us 220,000 rands, right? Now, in this case, obviously an intelligent business person would do something, would say, okay, I know I'm going to need a new car in about 5 years time, or whatever, 7 years time, whatever the period is. So in this case, what I would need to do is set up a fund. Now, how much would the business owner need in order to replace this car? You'll agree with me that now they can sell the old car for 50,000 rands, right? So which means now they've got 50,000 in their pockets, and in order to buy a new car, they would need 220,000 rands. So how much should they add in that case? So in this case, to buy a new car, they now need the difference between that 220,000 rands, okay, minus 50,000. I'm explaining this so that once we take a question, you'll be able to follow on. So it means that the owner would now need 170,000 rands in order to replace a new car. Now, of course, they can, go and borrow 170,000, or they can be smart about it. They can say, look, we can set up a savings account, right? And in that savings account, what it does is that we can contribute money on a monthly basis such that by the end of that 5 years, it would have accumulated to the amount that we need. So they would make regular payments on a monthly basis up until the end of 5 years. If you're doing it monthly, of course, that will be 60 months from the moment that you took the car. Now, in this case, I want you to note, so they can contribute an X amount of money on a monthly basis up until they get whatever it is that they need, which in this case, we said it's 170,000. And of course, what do we call the savings plan? We call this plan a sinking fund. Okay, so a sinking fund is a fund that is contributed to on a monthly basis so that you get a future value that you can use to replace equipment or whatever it is that you use for a business. Okay, right. So in this case, of course, what are we going to do? We're going to use our future value formula, in this case 1 plus I to the power n minus 1 divided by I. And in this case, we would now work out how much we would need to contribute on a monthly basis in order for us to make this particular amount of money that we need. Okay, right. Now, what I want us to do quickly is just take an example that we can use in order to illustrate this phenomenon. All right, let's take our example. All right, let's take our example. And it says a company bought equipment. Oh, sorry for that ugly handwriting, hey? They say company bought equipment to the value of 900,000. Okay, and they say which has to be replaced in 5 years' time. They say the value of the equipment depreciates at 15% per annum according to the reducing balance. Now, of course, if you don't know what this is, it means that you haven't watched our previous videos on the same topic, okay, on depreciation. Please go and have a look at that. Now, in this case, we say after 5 years, the equipment can be sold. Okay, so they're going to sell the equipment secondhand at the reduced value. And then they say the inflation rate of the equipment is 18% per annum. Right. So there are two things here. First of all, we've got depreciation, right? I said it's at 15% per annum. And again, we have got inflation, right, as we explained, that is taking place in this case. And this inflation, of course, would affect rather the price at which we buy new equipment. Okay, the cost of buying new equipment. Right. Now, they say the company wants to establish a sinking fund to replace the equipment in 5 years' time. Now, they say, first of all, calculate what the value of the sinking fund should be to replace the equipment. All right, now, so first of all, we'll come back to the second question. All right, yeah, I just want to make sure that we understand. So we've got, as we said, two things. We've got depreciation that takes place. So remember, they did say at a reducing, balance. So it's reducing balance depreciation at 15%. So what we are going to do is let's calculate what the cost of the equipment will be after 5 years, after depreciation has taken place. So this will be 1 minus I to the power n. And in this case, we know that we want to know what it will cost and we know that our present value in this case was 900,000. This is what the equipment costs today, right? This is 1 minus. Remember, they did say that the depreciation, okay, notice they said depreciation is at 15% per annum, right? So in this case, it means that we will say 15 divided by 100. You remember that percentage, we say divide that by 100, so that will give us 0.15. Okay, and we want to know what the cost will be in 5 years time. All right, so our end value is 5, and the value that we get there would be 399,000. Okay, this is 334 and 78 cents. So it means after depreciation, in 5 years time, the equipment that was worth 900,000 now can be sold off at 399,334 and 78 cents, right? Now, in this case, remember, in the same period, something else took place, inflation, right? So it means now the cost of buying new equipment will not be the same. It will not cost us 900,000 anymore. But in this case, we say, well, inflation, we know we're going to say 1 plus I, in this case to the power n. Again, if you don't know this, it means you haven't watched our previous video. Please do that for yourself. Right, so this is going to be 900,000 rands, okay? This is 1 plus. Now, remember they said inflation takes place at 18% per annum, right? So it means that now the inflation rate in this case will be 0.18, and we know we want to find out what it will cost us in 5 years time. So our end value will be our 5, right? So in this case, that will be 900,000, and that will be 1 plus 0.18, which is the inflation rate, and we say this is to the power 5, and I get a value of 2 million. Okay, let me just make sure that my value is correct. Yeah, I get a value of 2 million and 58. So this is 2,058,981.98. So equipment that's worth 900,000 today, in 5 years time, with an inflation rate of 18% per annum, would now be worth 2,058,981 and 98 cents, right? So now, what will it cost us to replace the equipment? Remember, we can now sell the old equipment at this amount. So it means that in order for us to cover this cost, what we would need is the difference, right? So in this case, for our sinking fund, what we would need is, of course, the difference. That's 2,058,981 and 98 cents. And I'm going to subtract that amount, which is 399,334 and 78 cents. And in this case, the cost of replacing the equipment would now be 1,659,000, and this is 648 and 20 cents. Okay, so if I may ask, please just make sure and verify these values for me, just to make sure that we are all on the same page. Right, so now it means our sinking fund must be able to accumulate to this amount. We've answered our first question. Right, and then the next question, they say to us, calculate the quarterly amount that the company has to pay into the sinking fund to be able to replace the equipment in 5 years' time. The company makes the first payment immediately. All right, for those of you who've watched the previous videos, you'll know that immediately, when they use that word immediately, right, it means something different in terms of our timeline. So what's going to happen is I'm going to, so in this case, we know this is from 0. Okay, so remember they said they actually pay this amount quarterly. Now think about it. How many quarters do we have in a year? We've got 4 quarters. And so in this case, how many quarters would we have in 5 years? We'd have 20 of them. So this is from 0 up until 20 in this case. But what they said to us is that we actually started contributing this amount, whatever amount that we would have, we need to start contributing immediately. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, up until 20. That is the 20th quarter in this case. And as a result, we're going to pay an amount of X every quarter. Now, notice in this case, because we started paying immediately, it's not going to be 20 installments, but in this case, it's going to be 21 because we are including from time 0, right? So what we're going to do is use our future value formula and say F is equals to X into, that's going to be 1 plus I to the power N minus 1, and this is divided by the interest rate, right? So remember the amount that we are working towards, the future value of the sinking fund, that's 1659. We want to make sure that we've got this amount, 648. So that's 648 and 20 cent. Okay, that's the amount that we got. And remember, we know that X is our our monthly repayments, or rather quarterly repayments in this case. Now, we said, well, interest rate. So this is 1 plus, remember, they had said, they said interest rate for the sinking fund is 8% per annum, right? And that is compounded quarterly, right? So we need to be mindful of that. It's compounded on a quarterly basis. So in this case, it's 8%, which is 0.08 divided by 4, all right? But in this case, compounded quarterly. So remember, this is 5 times 4, in this case, which is going to be 20. But remember, we started paying immediately, so that would be 21 terms, right? So that's minus 1. And this is going to be divided by, again, 0.08 divided by 4. So just be careful of that. Now, think about it. If they had said that we were paying monthly, so how many months do we have in a year? We've got 12. It would be 5 years. So that would be 12 times 5. That would be 60, right? But remember, we started paying immediately, so that would have been actually 61. All right, if you were to use that on a monthly basis. But remember, they are not paying monthly, but they are paying on a quarterly basis. Now, of course, you're going to do your gymnastics, mathematical gymnastics. I see people took quite a liking to that term, right? So what we're going to do is just make sure that we cross multiply here. You multiply that value there, and please just do everything in your calculator. Okay, just make sure that as much as it's possible, try to do everything in your calculator. I'm going to try and do that. So that's 1,659,648 and 20 cents. Okay, right. So you're going to multiply that by 0.08. 0.08 over 4. Okay, so this is us at cross multiplying. But then what we do, in order to obtain our X value, we are going to divide by this whole term. So I'm going to take that value in my calculator and divide by, so that's going to be 1 plus, so it's going to be 1 plus the interest rate, which is 0.08 over 4, 2, okay, and this is to the power 21, and in this case we've got minus 1. Okay, right, and I get an amount, so it means on a quarterly basis they would actually have to contribute 64,369,100 rather, and 7 cents. Okay, so that is the amount that they would need to contribute on a quarterly basis in order to make that future value of the sinking fund. All right, I hope that has been helpful and easily understood. I hope you've understood that quite well. I hope that example on the sinking fund has been quite helpful in terms of your preparation, for the exam. So if you haven't subscribed, please just make sure that you hit that subscribe button, and please don't forget to just like, the lesson after you've watched it. And of course, we'll continue to dish out good content for you. And for those of you who want to get registered, with us and make sure that you get more value outside of what we do on YouTube, you can always send us an email, and our email address is info@mlungisinkosi.co.za. Otherwise, I'll see you guys again next time. Sharp, sharp.